Hey everybody, John here from All Miniatures Great and Small. Today we're going to be doing a review of an overview of the new Pacific book for Flames of War. So this is a mid-war release. The Pacific did come out last edition for Flames of War, but it was towards the end of version 3, and I don't think it gained much traction before version 4 was upon us, and then it just kind of got lost in the weeds. So now it's kind of back in a big way with a new book. In this video, we're just going to be looking at the Japanese forces out of the book. I'm going to have a couple videos, each one focusing on a different faction out of the book, so that I can take a little bit more time talking about what we've got here. So the Pacific, the book itself covers between December 1941 and 1943. So it covers that 2-year period, which also corresponds with, mid-war for Europe and North Africa in your other Flames of War books. So with that, we're talking about, all different kinds of potential battlefields or areas, because the Pacific is huge. The Pacific conflict was enormous. It was, basically half of the globe. And so you've got a lot of options in here, which I think are pretty cool. So what are we going to do is we're going to talk about the book itself and the Japanese. So the book does have other factions: Marines, Army, British, Indian. So it's got a lot of stuff in there. It is, I think, going to be a infantry-focused release, so I don't know how popular that's going to be. I know a lot of players play Flames of War, so they could play with cool tanks. There are tanks in the game, and they are some cool-looking tanks, some old favorites and some new stuff. But it's not a tank. The Pacific Theater was not a tank-friendly environment, so you're not going to have a ton of tanks. And like I said, that could impact the popularity of it. Hopefully not, but I think this is just an interesting and new way to play Flames of War. Okay. So for the Japanese, we have a couple of formations, and they're broken up into army formations and naval formations. So in the army formations, we've got 4 different companies that we're going to look at. And then in the naval formations, there are 2 formations we are going to look at. And then you've got some kind of traditional support units that you would expect. One of the things we'll look at is, or one of the things we're going to talk about now, is the special rules that the Japanese get. The first one is Banzai. Banzai units move 6 inches instead of 4 when charging into contact, which is pretty huge. In addition, Japanese infantry teams save on a 4+ from defensive fire in assaults and are never forced to fall back from defensive fire. However, they can still become pinned down. If so, they end the assault pinned down, whether they win or are forced to break off. So that is really powerful. You can't stop a Japanese assault unless they are you kill them all. And they are hit on 4 during the defensive fire assault, so they are easier to hit than the normal 3-up. But still, you need a lot of firepower if you're going to kill everybody, and they're going to get into combat. Jungle craft. Japanese infantry teams have the terrain dash move of 12 instead of 8. An extra 4 inches is really good, especially since, and we'll talk about it eventually, the Pacific boards are probably going to have a lot of terrain on it, whether it's light woods or jungle or things like that. Okay. The Japanese have a no surrender special rule. And that just means they have a better last stand check. Night fighting. Japanese units from formations with night attack, as well as scout platoons and naval scout platoons, can move freely from the start of the game. So they are trained to operate in the dark. We have things like pioneers and flamethrowers, which are pretty standard rules across all the different factions. Same thing with tanks. They have tanks with amphibious. But they do have duty to the end, and I think this is another really powerful special rule. Bailed out Japanese tank teams can shoot machine guns in defensive fire. They can also roll to hit in assaults if in contact with an enemy team, but cannot move to counterattack or break off. Bailed out Japanese tank teams prevent enemy units winning an assault when checking if the assault is over. And if the unit breaks off, the bailed out Japanese tanks are still destroyed. So that's huge. That's really amazing. So I know I just got done saying it's not a tank-centric game, but the Japanese do have a fair amount of tanks they can pick from. And this is, assaulting tanks is already a tough proposition for infantry. This makes it even harder. They can still swing at you in base contact, and they can shoot machine guns in defensive fire. So the tactic of bailing out the enemy tanks before you assaulting them doesn't necessarily work that well. Okay, then for artillery, it has fire bursts. A unit with the fire bursts firing an artillery bombardment only reroll successful hits if it has one weapon firing. So instead of getting chopped down to 2 guns before you're re-rolling successful hits, you can get down to 1 gun. So a nice thing, but not earth-shattering. All right, then we've got some tanks. We're going to be talking about tanks. The first tank company we're talking about is the Type 97 Chi-Ha tank platoon. Tank company. So this formation is pretty basic. It's just an HQ with 2 mandatory platoons, plus so you can add a third, and then there's a 4th slot where you can add basically light tanks or tankettes. All right, so the Chi-Ha, you can get these platoons in between 3 and 5 tanks, and they are dirt cheap. Japanese tanks aren't anything to write home about. They do have some stuff, but they're just not that great. So first they're hit on 3s, so that's always an uphill battle. Their other motivation, they're 3 up, and their skill is trained. They have a front armor of 3, and their main gun is a 47 millimeter gun with an anti-tank of 8. So if you're fighting Americans, for example, 8 is decent against Stuarts. You're probably going to punch through a Stuart pretty easily. But against a Sherman with front armor 6, you're going to run into some problems. It's going to be an uphill battle. And then, the standard complement of machine guns. I think what we'll do is we're also going to have some unit overviews where we talk about these tanks in a little bit more detail. But I just wanted to give you an idea of what it was. You can, I guess you can upgrade these. So by default, they come with a 57 millimeter gun, which is not very good, but you can upgrade them with a kind of a higher velocity 47 millimeter gun. But it is overworked. Both guns are overworked, so they are extra to hit if they stay put. So that's the Chi-Ha, front armor 3. Pretty equivalent to something like a Stuart on the American side. Next up, we have a Type 89 Chi-Ro tank company. So that's an interesting one because it's got the same overall layout. You get an HQ plus 2 or 3 tank platoons and then some tankettes. But the Chi-Ro is even weaker than the first tank. Only front armor 1. It only has a 57 millimeter gun, so its anti-tank is just 5. It's an overworked gun. They're hit on 3. They do have some machine guns, but really that's about it. Not the best tank, but you're paying basically almost a point a tank. So they are cheap to add to your forces. Then we have the Type 95 Ha-Go light tank company. So these ones are tiny tanks, probably fit in just fine in early war for the Western Front. You've got again, front armor 1 hit on 3 with a 37 millimeter gun. Anti-tank 6 still overworked, so they've got these small turrets, so those crews are going to be struggling in there. But again, the same layout. You can take 2 or 3 platoons, plus then you've got one optional tankette slot where you can take some tankette platoons. Then let's see, you've got that you can't take these as platoons, but you do have those tankettes I was talking about. One tankette has a front armor 2, that's the Type 97. The older Type 94 only has a front armor 1. They have the Type 97 has a 37 millimeter gun with anti-tank 6 and overworked. The Type 94 is basically just a machine gun boat with brings you a couple machine gun shots. All right, last up for the Japanese Army, we have an infantry company. So this one is beefier, like most infantry companies. You do have an HQ with a couple of infantry platoons. 2 are required. You could take up to 3. And then you could tack on a machine gun platoon, a rapid fire gun platoon, a 75 millimeter gun platoon, and a 70 millimeter gun platoon. So you can add lots of, field artillery to this. Infantry is where your bread and butter for your Japanese. The tanks aren't going to win it for you. They can help, but it's going to be your infantry that can get the extra distance charging, can not get repelled, that are going to do it for you. All right, so the standard infantry platoon, you're hit on 3 still, so that's not that good. But you are confident with a Banzai counterattack of 3+, a last stand of 3+, and then their skill is a 4+, but they have Banzai assault on a 3+. So, those extra rules that kick in to make their stats a little bit better. The actual infantry platoon we'll start with just the largest size, because that's the important one. You get 10 Type 38 rifle teams and 3 Type 89 50 millimeter mortars. The rifle teams are just one shot, whether you move or stay still. Just pretty standard, but they are slow firing, which is interesting. I can't recall seeing slow firing on infantry before. It's probably out there, but I haven't seen it. So if they move, it's going to be harder to hit. But they do have those Type 89 50 millimeter mortars, 16-inch range, anti-tank 2, 4-up firepower, assault 5+, overhead fire, and slow firing. Basically, these can shoot over friendlies, and with the 4-up firepower, they're meant to dig out infantry or gun teams that are dug in. They do it a lot better than rifles. All right, so the options for the unit: you can add an extra mortar team, you can add an extra heavy machine gun team, and you can add one 20 millimeter anti-tank rifle team to it as well. So if you do all those attachments, you've got 13, 14, 15, 16 teams in one platoon, which is pretty beefy. So remember, if you get over 8 teams, your command radius bubble is bigger, things like that. Heavy machine gun team is pretty standard for what you'd expect, just like the Allies or Germans. The rapid fire gun platoon they say it's their primary anti-tank version. You can take it in 47 or 37 millimeter. The 47 is going to get you an anti-tank 8, while the 37 millimeter will get you an anti-tank 6. So not bad. It's a pretty simple anti-tank gun. Then you have a 70 millimeter battalion gun, which is an artillery platform, anti-tank 2, 4-up firepower. Not too bad. Same thing with the 75 millimeter. Adds anti-tank 2, 4-up firepower as well. But I guess the main difference is the direct fire on the 75 millimeter is slightly better. But yeah, so There you go. Oh, and the 70 millimeter can fire smoke. So that's you can either have better anti-tank or, sorry, better direct fire or smoke, because both of those cost the same. Okay, so that is talking about the infantry platoon. And by infantry platoon, I mean infantry company. So those are the four. You've got the Type 97, Type 89, Type 95, and the infantry company for the Army. Then in the naval formations, you've got two. The first one is a Type 2 Ka-Mi Naval Tank Company. And again, this is even a smaller formation. You've got an HQ plus, you're required to take two, could go up to three of these tank formations. So they're not going to be too hard to break. The Ka-Mi is an interesting tank. It's still front armor 1, so like the majority of Japanese tanks, it's hit on 3. It has got a 37 millimeter gun with anti-tank 7, 4+, and it's overworked too. So again, very similar to a Stuart. Stuart's gun's a little bit better because it's not overworked. But this tank does have the amphibious special rule, which is nice and duty to the end, like all the tanks where it can shoot even if it's bailed out, which is kind of cool. The Naval Infantry Companies, well, this one's got, it's jam-packed with stuff we can take. So besides the HQ, you can take 2 or 3 Naval Infantry platoons. Oh, you can take up to 4. I apologize. You can take up to 4. 2 of them are required. You've got Naval Rapid Fire Gun Platoon, Naval 81 millimeter mortars, Naval 70 millimeter, Naval 75 millimeter, Naval 20 millimeter anti-aircraft, and Naval 75 millimeter anti-aircraft. So you've got a couple of anti-aircraft platoons. You've got, I think, some of the same guns. Let's talk about this platoon. The Navy platoon, Naval Infantry platoon, is still hit on 3s. Their motivation looks better, so their fuel is 3 up, so their Banzai counterattack is a 2+, as well as their last stand is a 2+. That's really good. Same layout for the most part. You get the full-size platoon has 10 rifle teams plus 3 mortar teams. You can add another mortar team. You can add up to 2 heavy machine gun teams. So that's pretty cool. So 13, 14, 15, 16, yeah, you can get it up to 16 teams, including a couple of HMG teams. The rapid fire gun platoon, we talked about it. It just has a better motivation than the Army version, but otherwise the stats kind of remain the same. These, especially in mid-war, they have a 24-inch range. They're going to protect you from enemy tanks in theory. 81 millimeter mortars, pretty standard mortars that a lot of nations have. You've got anti-tank 1, 4-up firepower with smoke bombardment. I imagine smoke bombardments are going to be important for the Japanese because they want to screen getting that infantry probably as close as possible before they make their Banzai charge. The 70 millimeter gun platoon is the same as before. It has the smoke bombardment. The 75 millimeter regimental gun, and this is the naval version, is again the same. It's better in direct fire. Both of those have obviously the naval better motivation. The 20 millimeter anti-aircraft platoon gives you some rapid fire, halted rate of fire 3, 20-inch range, 5+ firepower, anti-tank 5, a threat to things like Stuarts, but that's really about it. And then the 75 millimeter anti-aircraft platoon is got some good range, 32-inch range, anti-tank 10, 3-up firepower, kind of like the 75 millimeter gun in a Sherman tank. And you can get them. They're not super expensive, but they might be a good call especially if you're worried about facing Allied tanks. Now, we are going to talk support units here on this list, but the way they have the books laid out, they do actually have the wildcard units first, so I think we're going to talk about that And then we're talking about the support units, which Army or Navy can take the same support units, doesn't really matter too much. So one of the most controversial things about this book, and I can already imagine the complaints on the Facebook page and all that, is the first Japanese wildcard unit is a Tiger heavy tank platoon. You can take one Tiger tank, and only one, but it's going to cost like a fourth of your army. It's an expensive tank, but Tigers are expensive in mid-war. That's just kind of the way it is, because there's not much that can hurt them, probably especially in the Pacific. The little blurb says, in 1943, Japan bought several examples of German tank designs for study with a view to further development. They had been encountering heavier tanks among the armor they faced in Asia and the Pacific. Blah, blah, blah. A single Tiger I was purchased along with the Panther and 2 Panzer IIIs, but only the Panzer IIIs were actually delivered. The undelivered Tiger was loaned to Germany by the Japanese government. Well, that was nice of them. So this is a theoretical unit. It has your standard Tiger stats, with its 88 millimeter gun, anti-tank 14, just an awesome vehicle. It's fearless with a 2-up remount. It is hit on 3, but when your front armor's 9 at mid-war, you're not worried about too much. So that's all I'm going to say about that now. We'll let the commentators complain about it, but it is kind of cool. You can paint a German tank in Japanese camouflage colors, which is kind of unique. And it's fun. But always get your opponent's consent before you bring these wildcard units, because it can it cause some bad blood. And if your opponent doesn't know you're bringing wildcard units, you want to give them a chance to build a list knowing that wildcard units are on the table, so that they could possibly bring their own, or they have a plan to counter that. The next wildcard unit is a Type 4 Chai-To tank platoon. So this is like the ultimate medium tank for the Japanese. It's front armor 7. It's hit on a 3. It has a long 75 millimeter gun with an anti-tank 12, 3-up firepower. Basically, it is a Sherman 76, and we can kind of leave it there. So if you know your Shermans, it's pretty good. I love me Sherman 76s, but again, this is a wildcard unit. It's not something you're going to want to play with unless you get your opponent's consent. Then I think the last wildcard unit is the Type 1 Ho-Ni 1 self-propelled gun platoon. And this one, it said it did see combat in the Battle of Luzon in the Philippines in 1945. But in mid-war, I guess it's a hypothetical unit. It's got a front armor 5, a side 4, and it's got a 75 millimeter, basically howitzer. It's artillery. And then it's got direct fire. It can direct fire with anti-tank 10, 3-up firepower. It is a 75 millimeter gun, but it does have an artillery blast out to 80 inches. So pretty much the whole board. So you could take that. They are pricey. I don't know if, you're taking this stuff, you're not, I think, taking the strengths of the Japanese forces. Okay, so that's all the wild cards. You can ignore that. Vent. Let me know down in the comments what you think. Next, we have support units. So you can take an engineer platoon. This is kind of another huge platoon for the Japanese. You can take, these guys are hit on 3s. They are just a regular 4-up motivation, so they're not treated like the naval guys. But you get 11 rifle teams and 2 flamethrower teams. And then you could take smaller versions of that. But that's the biggest version of the platoon. These guys have the Pioneers special rule, so that just means they can get rid of minefields a little bit easier. Then you have a scout platoon, pretty basic. We don't need to dive into that one. A naval scout platoon with better motivation. You got 81 millimeter mortars that are outside of the formation, so folks like the Japanese Army formation, the company, can add 81 millimeter mortars, get a little bit of extra smoke. And then you've got the 75 millimeter field artillery section. You have a 105 millimeter field artillery section. Both of these are pretty similar to their allied and German counterparts. You know, the 75 millimeter is going to have a 2-up anti-tank 4+ firepower artillery template. The 105 is going to have a 3-up anti-tank, 3-up firepower, and both of those have smoke, which is pretty nice. Observation post looks like it's just one dude. Then you've got the 75 millimeter anti-aircraft platoon, 20 millimeter anti-aircraft platoon. Same kind of thing we saw in the naval infantry company, but these are non-naval versions, so they're perhaps a little cheaper. Their motivation's not as good. Then in aircraft, you've got the Zero. You can take a flight of 2 Zeros. They're pretty much what you'd expect. They have cannons. They've got bombs, so they can strafe or they can drop bombs. Nothing really to write home about. The Zero was really not a ground attack aircraft. I'm surprised they didn't put something else here, except the Zero is very iconic, of course. All right, so some thoughts about the Japanese, and I haven't played a game yet. I don't know if I'm going to be getting a sample box here, or I'm just going to be 3D printing. But I am going to build my own Japanese force for this and bolt action, actually. I'm going to build Japanese both, I think, at the same time, just to kind of scratch that itch and get them both done when I have the same paints on my table. All right. So what do I think just looking at the stats? So I think this is going to be a very infantry heavy force. I think that's going to be the successful way to play them. I think that the tanks are nice, but you're probably going to want some just because they are, impervious to enemy rifles and machine gun teams. But any kind of anti-tank that the Allies are going to bring can just chew up your tanks. They are hit on threes and whatnot. Now, the terrain for Pacific, this book does have a really cool terrain section, because your terrain you're going to be playing on in the Pacific is going to be completely different than Europe, like I said up at the top of the video. You're going to have jungles, you're going to have lots of light woods. Some boards they recommend you set up so you treat the whole thing as like light woods, and then there's only patches of open ground. So you're going to have these tanks coming through and making a lot of cross checks, having areas that are hard for them to get through and things like that. And that's what you want. That's the historical reality of it. And most of the Japanese tanks, I think, have a cross check of 3, so pretty average. With a crosshair order that's a 2+, most of them are going to get where you want them to go. But again, you can't really count on it. The only heavy armor and heavy anti-tank guns you've got are your mostly static artillery pieces, or the hypothetical wild cards, which you're not going to play with on a normal basis. But I'm very excited to see the Japanese company. This is like the first truly assault army in Flames of War. With the special rules, their army rules are geared towards helping with the assault. So I would think units that can help queue up assaults are going to be the way to go. I don't think you're going to want to defend with any of these companies. I think you're going to want to attack or maneuver at the bare minimum, but I think you're going to want to attack, and I think you're going to want to have enough artillery so you can have 2 or 3 turns of smoke bombardments to protect your infantry. But the infantry can move so fast that you might be able to set up all your charges on turn 2. So having smoke will be helpful. Dense terrain will be helpful. Short of killing, like we said earlier, short of killing everyone in the charge, it's going to be really hard to stop or blunt a Japanese charge. These are huge platoons, and they're not going to run away easily. So that's kind of exciting. I'm kind of looking forward to it. It's a different way to play with your Flames of War armies. And I'm going to be looking through closely to see what the best anti-tank options are. And when we get more into the tactics, the tactics section for this book and this theater. I'm sure I'll have more to say, but everything is just kind of my opinion on what we're talking about here. I'd love to hear what you guys think down in the comments below. Anyone interested in building a Japanese army? Did anyone have a Japanese army in the previous version, version 3? And if so, how did it go? I imagine some of this is going to feel like playing the NAM version of Flames of War, which I did play for a while, but without the cool helicopters. All right, guys. Well, there you go. That's my look at the Japanese. In the next day or two, we'll be dropping the U.S. Marines, and we'll go from there. As always, thanks for watching, and keep on gaming. Just a quick plug, if you do like our Flames of War content, please do consider checking out our Patreon, where we have battle reports exclusive to Patreon members every month. And then also check out our YouTube membership here for if you just want to support the channel and what we do, or just to like and subscribe. I'd appreciate any of that. As always, thank you.